Hey everybody, your boy No Quarter here with Recon, doing our very first interview episode here. I went down to Arkadia Retrocade in Fayetteville, Arkansas. I interviewed Shay Mathis, owner of Arkadia. Wanted to see how he's doing, what's going on with the arcade, get a little insight from him. Here's how it went. What made you decide to start an arcade?
Unemployment.
Unemployment.
Yeah, no, it's not
as simple as that.
Yes.
Needed a job.
Not being sardonic, it's the truth. If you're unemployed long enough, you'll think of something. Basically, I had a pretty good steady job, personal medical stuff, quit, and jumped without a net. I had no plan, and got a plan together pretty quickly.
Wow.
Within a few months, a couple, 3 months, because, it's not fun being unemployed, as many people would probably agree with me on that.
Yeah, absolutely.
But so once I got a business plan put together and bought my first truckload of games, I thought, well, we're committed, let's do this. And
nice.
Turns out people get it.
People loved it.
Yeah, they got behind it. It was a total barn raising, getting the place up and running. So by the time, so from long story short, maybe too late, between the time I really seriously set out to start this project and open this business, I guess you could mark it from the time I was driving back from halfway across Oklahoma with a 17-foot U-Haul full of a dozen arcade games. From that point until the time we opened was a good solid, 8 months, almost 10 months.
Wow.
So,
did you buy the majority of your games in a lot, or did you just buy them from different
we
private
bought a
sellers?
few lots here and there. I mean, the biggest one would have been that first one with about, I think I bought 11 or 12 games from that same guy. Thanks, y'all. Hope you guys had a good time. Have a good night. But often we'll buy 3 games or 4 games at a time from somebody, or an auction or something. I think more than once, maybe a couple of times from auctions down in Texas, I bought 6 games. But again, and then often it's just one at a time. But what happens is, or at least what happens in our experience, and our fellow game collectors could weigh in on this, is I think some of them would be familiar with this experience. You find one thing on Craigslist, and it's just one specific thing you want, and you're like, well, that's a 6-hour drive. Let me just poke around and say, oh, shoot, another 30 minutes, and then we can get this other 2 or 3 things. And then by the time you're done with this day trip,
make it worthwhile, man.
It's turned into a 2-day trip, and then you got to rent a trailer. So, but that's great too, because that's if you're taking the trouble to drive, halfway up Missouri, then pick up a couple extra games on your way back down or whatever. So
might as well.
So that's often how that's how we built the collection slowly over the first few years we were open. And when we first opened, we had I think exactly 50 games, 2 of which of course broke down literally the hour we opened. So slightly fewer than 50 games when we very first opened the doors, and then so now 8 years later we've got closer to 200. Working would be, that number is obviously fluid, but 165, 175 working on the floor right now.
Okay, that's good to know, because I've been saying you have 100 plus games. So, okay.
It's
close to 150.
It's over
plus.
150.
Okay.
It's closer to probably about 165 or so.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Again, on the with the caveat that we've had literally half dozen games break down just over the past month or so, and we're still catching up.
Fluid is very accurate,
right?
Because there's no way of judging what machine's going to break down next.
Well, yes,
you just know something's going to break down. There's no way, you're not going to know.
Arcades. Murphy's arcade law states that as soon as you get something fixed, something else will break down to make up for it. But y'all heading out?
During the interview, we were set up at the front by the door because he's running the door, so he had to say bye to people. He's really a genuine guy. You got to go meet Shay.
So
what's your background in video games?
I'm a nerd.
Just nerd.
Yep. Utterly unprofessional. No actual technical background.
Okay.
Whatsoever.
You just like video games. You said, I'm going to start an arcade.
Well, I think it more accurately started out as I don't want to go back and do the same job I've been doing for a dozen plus years now. After I had previously, like I said, quit.
Done working for somebody else.
Correct. So it was more of I want to own my own business. I want to start my own business, own my own business, work up toward whatever, owning my own business, and this turns out this was it.
Okay. What's your favorite arcade game?
And that's not difficult to answer. If I had to pick one, if it was one of those, gun to your head, you have to just pick one. Tron. Yeah.
Okay.
And not least because it's the sexiest arcade game ever made, and it's super fun to play. It's actually really quite clever. And then of course it's footnote in history, and I just really like the movie franchise, the characters, the tech. It made a pretty solid impression on me when I was little, as happens with Star Wars and all our other stuff that we love. But that one just stuck with me over the years.
Okay.
And it just, if you had to pick one, that's the one that represents so well in a single game that whole era, of that early 80s era
the black
of arcade.
Light,
Yes, exactly.
The design of the cabinet.
Right.
The game itself. I mean, you got the four different games in the one game, basically. Right. So you get some variety in the one game.
Right. And then bookend that with the two movies.
Yeah.
Right. And so that kind of kicks it off, or sets it apart, sets it off. I have games that I enjoyed more as a kid. In fact, I sucked at Tron, still do, now as I did when I was a kid. Gauntlet. Oh man, we used to play. Well, me and my guys were D&D nerds in addition to being video game nerds, so that was just a natural.
Yep.
So and it was always fun to be able to play in a party with your friends. But
how about your least favorite game?
My least favorite game is the one that I can't fix right now because
Major Havoc?
No. I dig some Major Havoc. We had that dang thing more or less running, but
I'm heartbroken about that one, man. I cannot wait to play that thing.
Yeah. No, we even had it. We had it running. He was he had the oscilloscope hooked up, and everything looked good. There was one sort of
I get it. They're tough, man. That's one of the hardest cabinets to keep running.
I can't talk about it. The grief is still too near. Is that what the? Yeah.
How much work is put into keeping this thing operational?
Yeah, so I mean, not quite 24/7, but 8 to 15, 6. Yeah.
Okay.
So I mean, it's my livelihood, so it's all that I do.
Constant work on it. How has the arcade business shifted that you've seen in the past couple of years?
Well, that's a loaded question when we're talking about just barely surviving 2020. The arcade. So the barcade business model, as far as I know, is thriving. Great, awesome, love it. So then we have the sort of hybrid-y Dave & Buster's kind of experience, which has sort of been described to me as grown-up Chuck E. Cheese, adult Chuck E. Cheese. Mm-hmm. No offense to either Dave & Buster's or Chuck E. Cheese. I love me some both of those. All I can comment on is the way we do our business, which is the free play for the admission fee, and that's been great. Everyone gets that. People understand that you're not trying to take advantage of them for when they see that you're only asking for $5 for this many games, and
it's an amazing value. I mean, when
that's fair.
You think about
I think that's
paying for entertainment.
Yep.
$5 for as long as you want to play, you're not going to beat that.
Right. So leaving behind the sort of tired business model of the ticket redemption and buying a little kind of 30-cent piece of plastic something or other for $80 worth of tickets at the end of the day, leaving that behind, we keep a low overhead here is the best way I can describe it, and therefore we don't have to raise prices. Rather, I refuse to raise prices because I'm old and stubborn, but also why mess with a good thing? The guys that run a barcade or a Dave & Buster's style place, well, they just bought a new game and it cost them $40,000. So that's a little different than me buying a new, Major Havoc for $300.
Yeah.
Never mind, I put another $200 in it and it still breaks down. But that's different than spending 16 grand, 28 grand, 42 grand on new machines, and then having all this staff to cook your burgers and do your booze and all that kind of stuff. So it's just it's a totally different business model. So again, other than the fact that I just did, I don't really have don't really know what my comments are worth on those other businesses, because we don't have to deal with any of that stuff.
Sure.
So, but 2020's been rough because we have not been able to reopen our snack bar and have not been able to, which is more an amenity at our place than it is a moneymaker. But we have our private party room that has been disappointing for a lot of people that we haven't been able to do parties yet now, and it's not just because of COVID restrictions, although that is a huge part of it. It's because I can't afford to rehire any of the staff yet. That's how busy we haven't been since reopening. So until I can afford to rehire some staff, it doesn't do me any good to try to run the place and run the snack bar and swap parties out and clean up after parties and et cetera, et cetera. So once business picks back up, presumably once COVID dies back down, maybe at some point. It never did die down, so it's not going to die back down. Once COVID dies down and or people, and business picks back up, I will look forward to adding the other parts of our business model that we've been missing this year. Thanks, y'all. Hope you guys had a good time. Appreciate it. Appreciate the business. So, because you do make a few bucks on parties. I mean, we're also super reasonable about pricing on that. So, in other words, it's the cheapest birthday party in town you're going to have. But, we still make a few bucks. In fact, for the first 3 years that we rented the space next door while we were working on the expansion, that's what paid rent on that space, was party revenue. So it'll be nice to get that back.
Any advice you got on somebody wanting to start an arcade?
Do it.
Do it.
Yeah.
Don't hesitate.
Don't hesitate. World's going to end any minute. Get to it. Live your dreams. Do your thing.
Okay.
Have fun.
Well, there you go. Great interview. Great guy. If you ever get a chance, go down to Arkadia, Retrocade in Fayetteville. Shay's a great guy. He'd love to see you. Check him out on Facebook. And I appreciate you guys listening. We'll talk to you next time.